Follow us on Twitter @263chat and like our Facebook page 263chat. For these and other stories, visit our website www.263chat.com. Follow us on Twitter
Good morning, you celebrate with friends. My name is Commissioner Jeffrey Chada. I will be guiding you through the program this morning. On behalf of the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission, it is indeed my singular honor to welcome you, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends, who have come to celebrate with us the gazetting of our act. Before I introduce our deputy chairman, who is the acting chairperson, oh, pardon me, it's a different dictionary. I still use the old dictionary. I haven't bought the new one. I would like to ask all of us, except the commissioners and the secretariat, to introduce ourselves very briefly, and privilege to introduce to you Commissioner Lillian Chigwedere, who is the deputy chairperson of the commission, but currently acting chairperson pending the appointment of a substantive chairperson ready to address the conference. Up to you, Madam Chair.
To this very important occasion in the history of our National Peace and Reconciliation Commission. You are all welcome, and feel free to be as free as you can. And also, feel free to partake in the discussions that follow after my address. Today, like Commissioner Chada said, is a very important day in the life and the history of our National Peace and Reconciliation Commission. Now, on that note, I would like to say, ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted and I feel honored to welcome you all, fellow citizens, stakeholders, and friends to this first press conference by the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission. I want us to begin by taking ourselves, all of us here, to a close in the preamble of our Constitution, Amendment number 20, Act 2013, which reads, "We, the people of Zimbabwe, cherishing freedom, equality, peace, justice, tolerance, prosperity, and patriotism in search of frontiers under a common destiny, hereby make this constitution and commit ourselves to it as the fundamental law of our beloved country." End of quote. It is in the spirit of this commitment that the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission was established by the same Constitution of Zimbabwe, number 20, Act 2013. The NPRC, which is the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission, is one of the 5 independent commissions supporting democracy in accordance with Chapter 12 of the Constitution. On 24 February 2016, 8 commissioners, together with the chairperson, were sworn into office by the then President of Zimbabwe. The 8 commissioners are all here, and I have the pleasure to introduce them to you so that you can see them and know them as they move about, that this is our National Peace and Reconciliation Commissioners. The Deputy Chairperson is Commissioner Lillian Chikwedere, and that is myself here. Then we've got Commissioner Geoffrey Chala and Commissioner Golden Chekenyere, Commissioner Patience Chiradza. I think if you stand, people will see you better. Commissioner Charles Masunuhure, Commissioner Neti Musanu, Commissioner Leslie Mube, and Commissioner Choice Law. Sadly, the chairperson passed on in October 2016, and the commission awaits the appointment of his replacement. The full mandate of the NPRC is described by the 10 functions that are listed in Section 252 of the Constitution. For purposes of programming, the Commission has condensed these into the following 4 thematic areas. 1, promotion of national healing, unity, and social cohesion. 2, prevention and peaceful resolution of conflicts. 3, provision of justice and the making of amends. 4, provision of rehabilitative treatment and support to those affected by conflicts. At the time of swearing in, there was no legal instrument for the Commission. This is the mandate. This might explain the invisibility of the Commission, a concern repeatedly echoed by most of you here and others at large. Today, we are glad and delighted to officially inform the nation that the NPRC Act 2017 was gazetted into law on Friday, 5 January 2018, following its assent by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe. Are you not going to clap hands for us? At last, the NPRC can now stand tall and fly. Look at the commissioners' faces here. They are not sad today. They are happy and smiling, glorious, glowing, confident, and I'm sure ready to hit the ground running, if I may quote my president's phrase. While the commission seemed invisible, it was not idle. We were engaged in preparatory work to ensure that we are ready to serve the nation once the law was in place. For this, we are thankful to UNDP's support. Through this support, we engaged in in-depth capacity enhancement activities, focusing on team building, developing a common understanding and interpretation of our mandate, developing general regulations, organizational and operational structures and systems. During this period, we also got the opportunity to learn from other experiences within the continent, while appreciating the efforts by peace-building actors in our country. With the Act now in place, we are seized with finalizing the general regulations to be submitted to Parliament shortly. As a peace commission, we want to leave a legacy of a peaceful, reconciled, tolerant, and cohesive nation that will continue on the healing trajectory ad infinitum. This requires an open dialogue in which past hurts, divisions, and wounds are addressed in an atmosphere of peace and tolerance. The ultimate role of the NPRC is to facilitate the process of healing and reconciliation, to facilitate post-conflict justice, to facilitate prevention of conflicts and disputes arising in future, and to facilitate the promotion of sustainable peace. The Commission is guided by values of integrity, honesty, openness, accountability, responsiveness, inclusivity, gender sensitivity, victim-centeredness, sensitivity to disability and diversity, respect for the truth and human dignity for all. The adage that it takes a village to raise a child, kuthatha usizwe ukukhulisa umuntu, chara chimwe achitswanye inda, means that the Commission cannot go it alone. We perceive this process as a process and therefore a journey that we hope you can all embark with us. We are aware that each community has its own needs and priorities in relation to the mandate of the NPRC. It is in the spirit of inclusivity and the desire to ensure ownership that our first leg of the journey will be to convene consultative fora with citizens, key stakeholders in all the 10 provinces, so as to gather views on priorities to inform the NPRC strategic envisioning process. This will then be followed by a national convergence and dialogue on reconciliation, leading to the strategic planning process. The goal is to ensure that the NPRC's strategic priorities are informed by the needs and aspirations of Zimbabweans. We shall aspire to inform you on a regular basis on the activities of the Commission. We implore the whole nation to journey with us on this noble cause. Once again, allow me to reiterate that this process is a journey that will call for our collective efforts and commitment. It will require our patience and unwavering support. That means in this journey, there are no spectators. I want to repeat. In this journey, there are no spectators. Everyone is an actor with the goal of achieving peace and reconciliation for our country. I would like to end my address with the mantra that has been bequeathed to us by the late Vice President John Landon, which I request that we all stand and recite. All of us, let's stand and recite it. I'm sure Vice President Nkomo has been gone, I think, for almost 3 years now. And if we are to do justice, we should all start repeating the mantra without anyone reminding us. Can we start? 1, 2, 3. Peace begins with me. Peace begins with you. Peace begins with all of us. I thank you.
Well, I'm used to standing up, and my voice is big. It doesn't need a microphone. The cake has been served. This delicious cake is now at the center of our table for all of us to partake. But some of you might want to know from the chef, from the cook, from the one who baked this cake, what are the ingredients in this cake? This is the time to find out what the ingredients are. Some of them are indescribable. So if we say we don't know, it's because they are indescribable. And if we say wait until we consult the scientists, it's because we haven't consulted enough. So we would like to hear from you if you have any questions. But if you are satisfied that the icing on the cake is good enough, there is no need to know the ingredients, that's fine, we will start eating it.
Yeah, this gadget I think is not working. I'll try to project my voice in a way that everybody can hear. My name is Okay Machisa. I'm the director for Zimbabwe Human Rights Association, and I want to congratulate the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission for this achievement. It is a score, not only for you, but a score for the Zimbabweans. And I want to also say, the Vice Chairperson has described it as a process. And you have noted two key processes that I think we would want to applaud you for. It is very important, for your own information, I'm not going to ask a question, but I'm just going to reiterate something that I think the cake should have ways of eating. What I've noted is that you have indicated one key process of consultation. And that for us as civil society becomes the cornerstone of your process. Without consultation, we will not go anywhere. And you also indicated that you will have a national dialogue which will prescribe steps that will go forward. And again, I want to applaud you for that, because recognizing that there are people who have issues in the communities, start by consulting them. And for me, I think you have started on a note that if in earnest, and if there is that political will to support you, the process of national peace and reconciliation in Zimbabwe will score big time. So consultation for us becomes the cornerstone of everything. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Maibere from the National Transitional Justice Working Group. I have two questions. Besides congratulating.
Could you, perhaps two is the maximum. Okay. If you can ask later if you have more than two. Okay. So that we can remember.
So my first question is, it's a good thing probably now when we look back that you were appointed without a law, because now you were part of the process in terms of how this law then came to be. So now we have it. Do you feel as a commission that this law adequately gives you what you need to dispense your constitutional mandate? In short, I'm saying, are you happy with the law, or there are other aspects of this particular law which you wish were better? I think that will also assist in a number of ways. Then secondly, my second question is the Commission now clear on their lifetime in terms of the Constitution saying 10 years, and where does the 10 years begin to count? In other words, how many years of this commission do we have to look at?
My name is Father Ndete from the Zimbabwe Catholic Bishops Conference. My question relates to time frame. I thank you so much for the good presentation you have made, and we have heard also of the preparations you have been preparing and so on. But I did not get much on the time frame. The Constitution is very clear. You will be in the office for 10 years. Thereafter, it will die. But when you are talking of the consultations, stakeholders meeting, there are no time frame. I was thinking if we would have time frames, that will guide us, that will help us to move forward as quickly as possible. We cannot continue to rely on the amendment of the Constitution.
Thank you, Commissioner. My name is Sadi from Women's Coalition of Zimbabwe. And some of the things that have frustrated citizens and some of us is the excuse that have come in the name of subject to availability of funding or lack of resourcing. So we are reaching out to say maybe it's a recommendation to the Commission to begin to say the consultations could start where we also begin to embrace technology to facilitate or use the already existing structures so that the information or the consultations on the aspirations of citizens can begin to flow in. Then to look at an issue where, as the consultations happen, can there be a mechanism of beginning to collect or cost the resources that will be needed to do the work of the Commission, so that we will not wait for the budget consultations, then be frustrated that the plans and all everything have not been planned or have not been allocated or disbursed by the Treasury. So my interest, or where we come from as women who are committing to support the Commission's work, is to also say let's also have a resource planning building on the already existing structures and resources, so that we will not be found wanting or frustrated we don't have resources or we haven't received a disbursement and lose time in the way.
Thank you very much for all those questions. Justified for sake of clarity. The first question on the law, the adequacy of the law. I believe that the NPRC Act has been a subject of wide consultations, including the whole nation, and in particular, the stakeholders in the civil society, the churches, everyone, including the Commission itself. We all had an input to the Act. And for it to be passed, it was because there was that rigorous exercise. So I want to believe that as a National Peace and Reconciliation Commission, the initial ingredients are in the law. Where we will find the law lacking, perhaps we will meet that on the way and address it accordingly. But I have confidence that because this Act received wide consultations, and from those consultations, parliamentarians debated it, rejected it, did everything they did to make sure that the Act was fine-tuned. So I want to believe that from that exercise, our law allows us to do what we need to do. I don't know if other commissioners have input.
I'd like to call upon
thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity, and thank you, colleagues in the House. I believe any law can never be that adequate in terms of addressing the aspirations of the population. If you go through the Hansard in the parliamentary debates, especially in the second reading, there were proposals to amend the bill that was being presented, and much of the proposals, or many of the proposals, were set aside on the assumption that the Commission would address that in its regulations. And I want to say our regulations will provide a broader information covering so many of the areas that you had in the address, which may not be in the NPRC Act. For example, there was a concern from different stakeholders regarding issue of victim-centeredness, our mechanism for victim-centeredness, and in terms of protecting witnesses, and how we were going to proceed with even the process of facilitating mediation processes, etc. So I want to hasten to say that as part of the legislative process, as you all know, the regulations that will be tabled in Parliament will form part of the law that will guide the NPRC in its operations. Not only that, but we have even internal systems, procedures and policies that may not go to Parliament, but those also will become part of the body of information from which we will draw our own guidelines. Not only that, the Commission has 2 sets of committees. The first 3 are internal committees. The other 4 are external. They will interface with the public and with the communities. Stakeholders will be infused into those committees. Where there are gaps in the law, we will work together to ensure that the gaps are bridged. And as the Chair said, it will be work in progress and it will be a process for us all. Thank you.
Some aspects there are some aspects in the Act that may not be adequate, that may need to be further clarified. And like Commissioner Masunungure said, I think we've tried to do that through the regulations. I think, but for me, what is more important is whether the current law will be implemented. I think our country suffers from having very good pieces of legislation which are not sometimes resourced and are not implemented. And I think as stakeholders also supporting this journey of the Commission, I think what we need to do is to actually lobby for resources for this Commission to be able to actually implement the current law as it is provided for. Because this is one of the it's the only commission that has a very short lifespan, and if resources are not availed, we may not be able to do much. I think the issue has not been. I think there are 2 things. The first thing is that there is the life of the Commission, then there is the life of the commissioners. So I think as it is provided for in the legislation, it says this commission, there will be a commission. If you look at, I think there's a specific section which says there will be a commission. That is in 2013. So the interpretation from the former president was that this commission started operating in 2013, soon after the constitution was promulgated. And then commissioners came after. If you look at the Act, then says there will be 5-year term. It may be which can be subject to renewal. So that issue has really not been clarified on whether the Commission, in its current, as it is currently constituted, will run for 10 years, or we have already lost 3 years. Yeah, because 2013, we've already lost about 4 years. And this is an issue, unfortunately, that is not just within the control of the Commission to make that interpretation. But I think this is an issue. We are glad that we have a new responsible Vice President, and we are going to be meeting with him soon so that this issue can also be settled. Because I think as a Commission, we are also concerned in terms of, even as we are planning, are we planning for how long? Are we planning for the remainder of the years? What happens to the lost time? And I think those are issues that unfortunately cannot just be resolved by the Commission, but would need discussions with the responsible Vice President in its interpretation.
Thanks.
The 2 questions are actually intertwined. The question on the time frames for the consultation and stakeholders, and also the question that Sally Dura raised on the issue of resources. go hand in hand, because that's part of the programming aspect. The commission has done a frame for the roadmap, which consultations and inputs from stakeholders will fit into. The roadmap details how the commission is going to move from today going onwards, which means the various activities and the various programs and consultations and dialogue conferences and the provincial interactions that will take place are actually part of, right down to the monitoring and evaluation framework, are actually part of the roadmap of the commission. And this roadmap is going to be communicated to all stakeholders in the media so that there is access and everybody knows exactly the roadmap that the commission is going to work. And in terms of the lack of resources, it's a reality of the commission, and the commission is actually seized with that reality that resources might actually not be adequate in order to do everything that you want to do. But what is important is what the commission has done to provide strategic thinking in terms of the approaches that are going to be taken in implementation of program activities. Firstly, the commission has a fundraising strategy that has been finalized, and now because the act has been gazetted, we are able also to approach other interested parties in terms of raising resources. And secondly, the strategic aspect of working with the peace-building architecture, people who already have been working in this field longer than we have, in terms of those who are decentralized, in terms of policy, in terms of research, in terms of mapping and analysis, in terms of gender mainstreaming, and all those aspects. So the Commission has taken this approach to say, in order for us to maximize the limited resources that we have, we will piggyback on activities that are already taking place. And so we will bring in a number of stakeholders. We'll sit down and we will see how the various stakeholders can contribute to the 10 functions. And of course, there's going to be a work plan for Ndete. Out of the strategic planning process, we're going to come up with a work plan that has long-term activities, short-term activities, medium-term activities, and even low-hanging fruits. And this work plan is also going to be shared with stakeholders. Thank you.
Regarding your comment or question in relation to the use of existing structures and embracing technology, I think those of us who were invited via Twitter, you agree with me that we have already started to put our digital footprint in place. We have several arrangements in place to ensure that we make use of available technological mechanisms. For example, social media is an undeniable force, and we have been communicating over the last 36 hours. Our post on Twitter has generated more than 2,000 visitations, which shows you how the social media is active. We will be visible on Facebook, we will be visible on the internet using our website. Very soon in the future, we will publish all those links so that we can get feedback. I agree with all the previous speakers that we need to get feedback and input from stakeholders. And one of our sources of information is the constituency that patronizes the social media. There, I must admit that you get everything. You get criticism, you get acknowledgements and praises. I would like to assure stakeholders here that we will listen to every feedback that will come through social media and all forms of media, be they print, electronic, and the media that is represented here. It will be a very good thing for us to realize how important feedback it is in terms of being timeless. I remember last night there is one person that was saying, I didn't know that commissions can also respond to tweets that quickly. And I think it was 11 p.m. When I was explaining the venue of this meeting. And I want to promise you that we will do everything in our power to break from the tradition of having idle websites that are not interactive, pages that are having tweets posted once in a month. We are not the type of people that will do that. We will try in our best efforts to ensure that all means of communication will be adopted. And this will also fit into, if I may want to get into the aspect of our complaints handling policy that we will publish through the regulations. You will notice that complaints can be sent to the Commission in different ways. And of course, we'll then guide us to how the process will go from there. So indeed, we are going to use technology, including short codes on the different platforms of the various service providers, so that if a person who is in the village who may not have internet, they may have access to the Commission using the short codes, using that little phone which is not usable on the internet, but which can actually access the service providers. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I just wanted to go back to Mr. Bere's question on whether the Commission is clear with regards to its lifespan. I think we are all clear that the Constitution says that from the effective date, and that is not also clear. Parliament debated this issue, and I think we remember that Honorable Majome raised the issue in Parliament, but Parliament itself could not actually come with a way forward, because there was the issue as to is the effective date of the Commission's work when the Constitution was ratified, is the date of the Commission's work when the Commissioners were sworn in on the 24th of February 2016, or is the work of the Commission starting when the Act was actually gazetted and signed into law on the 5th of January 2018. So there has not been a way forward even in Parliament. There has not been an agreement there. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Thanks for the clarification.
But that doesn't stop the Commission from embarking on its journey while that issue is being sorted out by those responsible for sorting it out. I think the Commission is ready to embark on its mandate based on the Act that was gazetted on the 5th of January.
For these and other stories, visit our website www.263chat.com. Follow us on Twitter @263chat and like our Facebook page 263chat.